Do you ever feel like you're stuck in the same routine? Like every day you're just going through the motions, waking up, checking your phone, grabbing coffee, scrolling endlessly, and telling yourself tomorrow, I'll do better. What if I told you it's not your fault? It's not laziness. It's not a lack of motivation. It's something deeper, something more powerful, and often something invisible. It's your habits. And once you understand how they work, you can take back control of your life. This is the main idea in the best-selling book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This book isn't just another self-help guide with generic tips. It's a deep look into how our brain works, how habits form, and most importantly, how we can change them for good. Charles Duhigg is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He didn't just pull ideas out of thin air. He spent years researching brain science, psychology, and real-world examples of personal and organizational change. In this book, he uncovers a powerful truth. Habits shape almost every moment of our lives, from what we eat in the morning, to how we talk to people, to how businesses operate, to how revolutions start. Habits are behind the curtain. So let's go deeper. Let's start by understanding what a habit really is. A habit is an automatic behavior. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. That's what makes habits so powerful and so dangerous. Most of the time, we're not even aware we're doing them. Duhigg introduces us to something called the habit loop. This is the core of everything. The habit loop has three parts: the cue, the routine, and the reward. Let's break this down. First comes the cue. This is the trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode. It could be a time of day, a place, an emotion, or even the sight or smell of something. Let's say you're sitting at your desk at 3 p.m. You feel bored or tired. That's the cue. Next is the routine, the actual behavior. Maybe you stand up, walk to the vending machine, and buy a candy bar. That's the habit in action. And then comes the reward. You eat the chocolate. You get a hit of sugar. You feel a burst of energy. Your brain says, that felt good. Let's do that again tomorrow. Over time, this loop, the cue, routine, reward, becomes automatic. Your brain actually builds a shortcut. The more you repeat it, the stronger the habit becomes. Eventually, you don't even need to feel bored. Just the time of day can be enough to kick the loop into motion. This isn't just theory. It's backed by science. Researchers at MIT studied the brains of rats and discovered that once a habit is formed, the brain stops making decisions. It goes into a kind of autopilot. This frees up mental energy for other things, but it also makes habits really hard to break. Now, here's where it gets interesting and a little scary. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a good habit and a bad one. It will form both. So that means the same system that helps you brush your teeth every morning can also lead you to smoking a pack of cigarettes every night. But don't worry. There's good news. Just because a habit is strong doesn't mean it can't be changed. Duhigg explains that habits can be reshaped. You can't erase them, but you can overwrite them. Before we talk about how to change a habit, let's look at how companies use habits to their advantage. One of the most powerful examples in the book is the story of Febreze. When Procter & Gamble created this product, it was designed to eliminate odors. At first, sales were terrible. Why? Because people didn't realize their homes smelled bad. They were nose-blind to their own odors. So the marketing team tried something different. They added a scent to Febreze and marketed it not as a cleaning product, but as a reward, something people could spray at the end of cleaning to feel satisfied. Sales exploded. Why? Because they created a new habit loop. Cue, finished cleaning. Routine, spray Febreze. Reward, a fresh, pleasant scent. Once again, cue, routine, reward. It works every time. Even more fascinating is how we develop cravings. Duhigg shares that habits start to create anticipation in our brains. Over time, we don't just respond to the reward, we start to crave it. That craving becomes the fuel for the habit. It's why smokers don't just light up because they're stressed. They crave the relief that the cigarette gives them. It's why social media becomes addictive. The cue is a notification. The routine is checking your phone. The reward is a like, a comment, a quick hit of dopamine. Over time, your brain starts to crave that buzz, even if the reward isn't great, even if it's empty, the habit is locked in. This craving is powerful, but it's also the key to breaking a habit. If we can understand what we're really craving, we can find a better routine to satisfy it. We'll talk more about that in the next section. For now, let's end with this. Your life today is made up of hundreds of habits. Things you've done so many times that they've become invisible. But invisible doesn't mean unchangeable. Every habit can be reprogrammed if you understand the loop. Cue, routine, reward. That's your starting point. Just take a moment to think about one habit in your life, good or bad. Ask yourself, what's the cue? What's the routine? What's the reward? Once you can see it, you can start to change it. And if that sounds too simple, don't worry. You're not alone. Most people never learn this. But now you know. Now you see the loop. And that means you're already one step ahead. Think about that. Asterisk. So now that you understand the habit loop, cue, routine, reward, the question becomes, how do we change a habit that we don't want anymore? How do we stop biting our nails, procrastinating, overthinking, smoking, scrolling, or overeating? Most people try to quit bad habits by using willpower. They just say, I'll stop doing it. And maybe they can for a day or two, but eventually, something triggers them, and the habit comes rushing back. That's because they're trying to erase the habit instead of replacing it. Charles Duhigg explains something called the golden rule of habit change. It's simple, but incredibly powerful. You can't get rid of a habit, you can only change it. You do this by keeping the same cue and the same reward, but replacing the old routine with a new one. Let's go back to the vending machine example. You feel bored or tired at 3 p.m. every day. That's your cue. You walk to the vending machine, that's the routine. You eat a candy bar and feel good, that's the reward. If you want to break that habit, you don't need to change the cue or the reward. You just need a new routine that satisfies the same craving. So maybe instead of eating candy, you go for a short walk, or chat with a friend, or eat something healthy that still gives you energy. The key is to experiment and find a new routine that gives you the same feeling, the same payoff. Once you do, your brain will start to build a new loop. But here's the catch, change doesn't happen overnight. It takes repetition, it takes awareness, and it takes belief that you can change and that this new habit will stick. Belief is more important than people think. Duhigg explains that belief is what helps people stay strong when things get hard, when the craving comes back, or when life gets stressful. It's what helps you stay on the new path, even when the old one feels easier. He gives a great example of this through Alcoholics Anonymous. A is one of the most successful habit change systems in history, and it's not just because people go to meetings. It's because A replaces the old drinking routine with a new one. Going to meetings, talking to a sponsor, praying or meditating, sharing feelings. The cues like stress, loneliness, or anger are still there, and the reward, feeling better or more in control, is still there too, but the routine is completely different. And more importantly, A helps people believe that change is possible, believe that they're not alone. That belief becomes a new habit in itself. Duhigg also talks about the power of tracking when you want to change a habit. The first step is to observe it. Don't try to fix it right away, just watch it. Write it down. What's the trigger? What time of day is it? Where are you? What are you feeling? What do you do next? And how do you feel afterward? This kind of self-awareness shines a light on the behavior, and once it's visible, it's easier to adjust. Let's look at a real story from the book. A woman named Lisa had been a smoker for years. She was also overweight, had financial problems, and was stuck in a cycle of unhealthy behaviors. But one day, after a difficult breakup and a trip to Cairo, she made a decision. She was going to stop smoking. That was her one goal. It became her focus. And here's the amazing part. As she worked on that one habit, everything else started to change too. She began exercising. She started planning her meals. She got out of debt. Her life transformed. And it all started by changing just one keystone habit. A keystone habit is a habit that has ripple effects. When you change it, other things change too. For Lisa, quitting smoking was the keystone. For someone else, it might be exercising daily, journaling, eating dinner with their family, or waking up early. The habit itself isn't magic, but it sets off a chain reaction. It gives you confidence. It builds momentum. It shows you that change is possible. That's why finding your keystone habit is so important. Ask yourself, what one habit I changed it would make everything else in my life easier or better? You don't have to change everything at once. Start with one. That's where the power is. Now, let's talk about something most people struggle with: willpower. Everyone wants more of it, but Duhigg explains that willpower isn't something you either have or don't have. It's actually like a muscle. It can be trained, but it can also get tired. In one study, researchers found that people who had to use a lot of self-control during the day were more likely to give in to temptations later. But here's the good news: just like muscles, willpower gets stronger with practice. The best way to build willpower is by creating habits that reduce the need to make decisions. For example, if you plan your meals for the week, you don't have to think about what to eat every day. That saves mental energy. If you lay out your workout clothes the night before, you reduce the friction. That's how habits and willpower work together. Habits automate good behavior, and that frees up willpower for the harder moments. Duhigg shares the example of Starbucks. The company discovered that many of their employees would get overwhelmed by rude customers or difficult situations. Instead of yelling or quitting, they taught their baristas how to build willpower through habit training. They used something called if-then planning. For example, if a customer starts yelling, then I will take a deep breath, smile, and ask how I can fix the issue. These scripts became habits, routines that kicked in automatically when a cue happened. And because the employees didn't have to think in the heat of the moment, they could stay calm and professional. This is powerful. It shows that even in stressful, emotional situations, habits can protect you if they're designed ahead of time. So if you struggle with anger, stress, procrastination, or anxiety, ask yourself, what routine can I prepare in advance so I don't have to rely on willpower in the moment? You see, changing habits isn't about being perfect. It's about being prepared. It's about designing your day, your environment, and your mind in a way that makes the good choices automatic. And don't forget, setbacks are normal. Everyone slips. Everyone falls back into old habits sometimes, but that doesn't mean you failed. It just means the loop is strong. You just need to jump back in, review the cue, switch the routine, and aim for the same reward. Over time, the new habit becomes the stronger one. So now you know the secret. You don't need to fight your habits, you just need to understand them. You don't need to break them, you need to replace them. And you don't need to change your whole life overnight, you just need to start with one thing. Your cue is already there. Your reward is already wired in your brain. All you have to do is choose a better routine. That's how change begins. And here's the truth. Once you change one habit, you start to believe you can change another, and then another, and soon, you're not the same person anymore. You're stronger, more aware, more in control. Change is possible, and it starts with a single habit. Let's now talk about something truly transformative: the habits that create momentum. Charles Duhigg calls these keystone habits. They're not just ordinary routines. They're the habits that start a chain reaction. When you focus on one of these, other areas of your life begin to change too, often without you even realizing it. Think of a keystone in an arch. It's the stone in the middle that holds everything else together. If you remove it, the whole structure collapses. But if you strengthen it, the entire structure becomes more solid. That's what keystone habits do in your life. They support everything else. One of the most famous examples in the book is the story of a company called Alcoa, the Aluminum Company of America. In the late 1980s, Alcoa was struggling. Profits were down, morale was low, and investors were nervous. Then a new CEO, Paul O'Neill, took over. At his very first meeting with shareholders, he shocked everyone. He didn't talk about revenue or production or growth. He said one thing: I want to make Alcoa the safest company in America. People were confused. Safety, that didn't sound like a strategy. But O'Neill knew something most people didn't. He believed that by focusing on safety, a keystone habit, everything else would improve. And he was right. When Alcoa improved its safety protocols, workers had to communicate better. Managers had to react faster. Processes had to become more efficient. Accidents went down and profits went up. Within a year, Alcoa's value skyrocketed. And it all started with a single habit: safety. That's the power of a keystone habit. It creates a ripple effect. It builds trust. It sets a new standard. And most importantly, it changes how people see themselves. When someone starts to see themselves as a safe worker or a healthy person or a disciplined student, their actions follow that identity. Duhigg explains that keystone habits also change what people pay attention to. For example, people who start exercising regularly often begin to eat healthier. They start sleeping better. They become more productive at work. Why? Because the act of exercising changes how they see themselves. It triggers other positive routines. Here's something interesting. People who keep food journals, simply writing down what they eat, are more likely to lose weight. Not because writing burns calories, of course, but because tracking food makes people more aware. That awareness leads to better choices. Over time, that small act creates a new identity. You go from someone who eats mindlessly to someone who pays attention. That's a powerful shift. And it doesn't stop at the individual level. Entire organizations, communities, even social movements can be shaped by habits. Duhigg shares the story of the Montgomery bus boycott, one of the key moments in the American civil rights movement. When Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a bus, it sparked a massive protest. But it wasn't just her act of defiance that made it successful. It was the habits of the community that turned that moment into a movement. You see, Rosa Parks wasn't just anyone. She was deeply connected to her church, her neighborhood, and several local groups. When she was arrested, people didn't just hear about it, they felt it. Their routines were disrupted. Their social habits kicked in. They rallied. They spread the word. They organized carpools. The boycott lasted over a year, and it changed history. Not just because of one brave woman, but because of the habits of thousands of people acting together. This brings us to another key idea in the book: small wins. Big change often starts with something tiny. A single act, short walk, one phone call, one day without smoking. These small victories create momentum. They build confidence. They prove to you and to others that change is possible. In psychology, small wins are powerful because they give us a sense of progress. And that feeling of progress is incredibly motivating. When we feel like we're making progress, we want to keep going. Even if the goal is far away, we stay focused because we believe we're on the right path. Let's go back to Lisa, the woman we talked about earlier who quit smoking. Her decision to stop smoking seemed small, but it gave her a sense of control. It showed her that she could change one thing, and that led her to change other things: her health, her finances, her relationships. One small win led to a new identity. Companies use small wins all the time. At Starbucks, new employees are trained to handle stressful situations in a very specific way. They practice short scripts. If a customer is angry, they don't guess what to do. They follow the routine they've rehearsed. Over time, these small actions build confidence. A shy teenager becomes a calm, professional barista. That's the result of habit training, one small win at a time. Even Olympic athletes use small wins. Michael Phelps, for example, had a pre-race routine that he followed religiously. Every day. Same warm-up, same stretches, same music. Even during the race, he visualized each stroke. It was a mental habit loop. Standing on the platform. Routine: deep breaths, jump, swim. Reward: feeling the water move just the way he expected. These routines made him nearly unbeatable, even when things went wrong. Like when his goggles filled with water, his habits carried him through. So, what can we learn from all of this? First, don't underestimate small changes. Starting a new habit doesn't require a complete life overhaul. It just requires consistency. Choose one small behavior. Repeat it every day. Let it become part of your identity. Second, identify your keystone habit. What one routine, if done consistently, would make everything else easier? Maybe it's waking up early. Maybe it's writing in a journal. Maybe it's eating dinner at the table with your family. Find it. Protect it. Build around it. Third, trust the process. Change feels slow at first. It can be frustrating. You might not see results right away, but habits work in the background. They grow quietly. And then, one day, you realize everything is different. Change is not about giant leaps. It's about steady steps. It's about small wins, one after another, until they stack up into something big. And remember this, your habits don't just shape your day. They shape your identity. Who you are is not decided by a single event. It's shaped by what you do consistently. So if you want to be a writer, write something every day, even one sentence. If you want to be healthy, go for a short walk, even 10 minutes. If you want to be confident, start by standing tall and making eye contact. Habits are not about effort, they're about direction. That's the secret behind successful people. Strong relationships, great companies, and powerful movements. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's habits. And once you understand that, once you believe that, you can start to rewrite your story. You don't have to wait. You don't need permission. You just need to start. And once you do, even the smallest change can lead to something incredible. Let's now talk about one of the most important tools in the habit change journey, willpower. Most of us think willpower is something you either have or don't have. Some people are just disciplined. We say they wake up early, go to the gym, eat clean, work hard, never complain. But Charles Duhigg breaks that myth apart. He says willpower isn't a fixed trait. It's more like a muscle. It can grow stronger, but it can also get tired. In the book, he shares a powerful study where researchers gave participants a simple task. Half of them were asked to resist eating freshly baked cookies sitting right in front of them. The other half could eat as many as they wanted. Afterward, everyone had to solve a difficult puzzle. Guess who gave up faster? The people who had to use their willpower to resist the cookies. Why? Because their willpower had already been drained. It's like lifting weights. After a few reps, your arms get tired. Same with self-control. This helps us understand why people often make bad decisions at night. After a long, stressful day of work, commuting, and responsibility, their mental energy is gone. That's when they binge on junk food, skip workouts, or start fights with loved ones. The tank is empty. But the good news is, just like muscles, willpower can be trained. And habits are the best way to do that. Habits reduce the number of decisions you have to make each day. When something becomes automatic, it no longer drains your energy. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't use willpower for that anymore. It's a habit. If you can turn other good behaviors into habits, like saving money, exercising, writing, or making your bed, you free up willpower for harder tasks. Duhigg gives us the example of Starbucks. The company discovered that many of their employees were quitting or struggling during moments of high stress. Angry customers, long lines, spilled drinks. These things would push people over the edge. So Starbucks began teaching their employees how to build new habits for those situations. They used a tool called if-then planning. If X happens, then I'll do Y. For example, if a customer starts yelling, then I'll take a deep breath and say, I understand how you feel. Let me see how I can fix this. By practicing these responses over and over again, employees created a habit. The moment stress hit, they didn't have to think. They didn't have to use willpower. They just followed the script. That's how habits protect your energy, by taking over when your brain is too tired to think clearly. And here's something even deeper. Willpower is not just about resisting things. It's also about staying focused on long-term goals, the things that matter most. People who learn to delay gratification, who can say no to short-term pleasure in favor of long-term gain, often live healthier, happier lives. But again, this isn't about being perfect. It's about creating systems and routines that support your goals automatically. For example, someone who wants to eat healthier might stop buying junk food altogether. If it's not in the house, the decision has already been made. That's not willpower, that's environment design. Another person who wants to write every morning might create a habit of putting their laptop on the table the night before. No resistance, no debate, it's ready. That's not willpower, that's a habit loop working in your favor. Now, Duhigg explains that willpower is most effective when it becomes a habit itself. Yes, willpower can be trained into a routine. He shares the story of a group of students who were taught how to create study plans with built-in responses to challenges. For example, if I feel distracted, I'll take a 5-minute break and then come back. Over time, this reduced their stress and improved their grades. Their self-control became automatic. But let's not forget the emotional part of change or belief. As we saw earlier with Alcoholics Anonymous, belief is the fuel that keeps new habits alive. When things go wrong, when setbacks hit, when life gets messy, belief is what helps people get back up. A is built around belief. Belief in a higher power, belief in the group, belief in the process. It's what makes the program work. People attend meetings daily, sometimes for years. They recite familiar lines. They hear others share similar struggles. All of this reinforces belief. And when belief is strong, habits are easier to maintain. Duhigg tells the story of a man named Tony Dungy, the legendary football coach. When he took over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the team was one of the worst in the NFL. But Dungy didn't focus on new plays or flashy tactics. He focused on habits. He believed that in high-pressure moments, players don't rise to the occasion. They fall back on their training. He trained his team to react without thinking. See a cue, run the routine, expect the reward. It was all about repetition. The players didn't need to be the biggest or the fastest. They just had to follow the pattern. And over time, the Bucs became one of the most dominant teams in the league. They even won the Super Bowl. It wasn't magic, it was muscle memory, habit loops, belief, and consistency. So what's the takeaway for you? First, know that your willpower is real, but it's limited. If you rely on it too much, you'll burn out. That's why you need habits to take over when you're tired, to protect you when you're weak. Second, train your willpower like a muscle. Start small, stay consistent, build strength, create routines that support your goals. Make the good choice the easy choice. Third, believe. Believe in the process. Believe that change is possible. Believe that you are not stuck. Because the moment you believe something new is possible, your brain begins to work differently. New circuits start to form. New stories begin to unfold. Even in business, belief shapes outcomes. Companies like Target use customer habits to predict behavior. By analyzing shopping patterns, they can tell if a woman is pregnant, even before she announces it. Scary, maybe, but it shows how deep habits go. Our routines, what we buy, how we eat. When we check our phones to tell a story, and if we're not aware of those stories, someone else might use them to guide us. So you have two choices. You can let your habits run you, or you can run your habits. You can react to life, or you can design it. And it all starts with one small decision, one loop, one belief. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You just need a new pattern, a new cue, a new routine, the same reward. That's the formula. That's how it begins. You're not waiting for a better moment. You're building it right now. By now, you've seen how powerful habits truly are. They shape our mornings, our workdays, our relationships, our health, and even our happiness. They live in the quiet, repetitive corners of our lives, often invisible, but always active. They are the patterns we fall into when we're tired, when we're stressed, when we're not thinking, and they're also the patterns that can carry us through when everything else feels uncertain. So let's step back and remember what we've learned. Habits are built from loops: cue, routine, reward. That's the formula. It applies to brushing your teeth, to scrolling your phone, to checking the fridge when you're bored. It applies to athletes, to CEOs, to students, to parents, and to you. But here's the breakthrough: habits can be changed. You don't have to erase them, you simply need to understand them. Keep the cue, keep the reward, and swap in a better routine. Over time, your brain will rewire itself. That old habit loses its grip, and a new one takes over. We talked about the golden rule of habit change, about the power of craving and anticipation. We explored Keystone habits, the ones that create ripple effects across your life. One small, steady change can lead to major transformation. We saw how companies, schools, and even entire social movements harness the power of routines to create massive impact. Whether it's Paul O'Neill transforming Alcoa through a focus on safety, or Tony Dungy training football players to win with pattern recognition, the lesson is the same: change the habit, and you change the outcome. We also talked about willpower not as some magical gift, but as a resource that can be trained, protected, and built into habit. When you automate the right routines, you no longer need to battle temptation every time. You've already made the decision. But maybe the most important truth in the power of habit is this: belief matters. Belief in the system, belief that change is possible, belief that you are not stuck in the same loop forever. You don't have to be who you've always been. The future version of you is just a few new routines away. So now, it's your move. Think about one habit in your life, or just one that you know is holding you back. It might be small, it might be something you've tried to change before, but now you have the tools. You understand the loop. You know the power of replacing the routine. You know the importance of belief and small wins. You don't need to change everything overnight. Start with one change, one cue, one new action, one repeated reward. Watch what happens next. If this video helped you see things more clearly, if it gave you even a spark of hope or a moment of reflection, do one more thing. Like this video, leave a comment and tell us, what's one habit you're ready to change? What's one Keystone habit you're going to commit to today? And don't forget to subscribe. We're building a community of people who are ready to live intentionally, not just react to life, but design it together. We'll learn how to take control of our habits, our thinking, and our future. Because, in the end, success isn't about luck. It's not about willpower alone. It's about patterns, systems, habits. And once you master those, there's no limit to who you can become. You were built for more, and now you know how to begin.